Global skincare brand Bache was founded in 1936 in Paris by Madame Bache, who by all accounts was a force to be reckoned with. 84 years down the track, it's a third-generation family business run by Pippa Hallas, another force to be reckoned with. And today, Pippa shares how she's continuing to grow this iconic brand. Coming to you with a flawless complexion, it's episode 531 of the 11-year-old award-winning Small Business Big Marketing podcast.
Yeah, I said, welcome to a small business marketing show where successful small business owners share their souls to take your marketing straight to the lead. Now, here's your host, Mr. Tim Reid.
And welcome back to your weekly dose of marketing moisturiser. I'm your host, Timbo Reid. You, infinitely more importantly, are a motivated business owner, and you are well and truly ready, I hope, to crank out some great marketing to build that beautiful business of yours into the empire that it absolutely deserves to be. And that's exactly why this podcast exists. But if that's not enough, then grab a copy of my popular marketing book, The Boomerang Effect, that shows how being helpful in your marketing returns you more customers and more money. Ka-ching! You can grab a copy over at smallbusinessbigmarketing.com. Big episode today. Pippa Hallas, owner of the iconic skincare empire Bache, shares how she's managing and growing a third-generation family business that started in Paris, the city of love, in 1936. This week's Monster Prize Draw winner picked up an idea from a recent episode, how's this, that made their business more honest. Does that mean it was a dishonest business before they started listening to this podcast? I don't know. We will find out later. Plus, I have got a little surprise for you in the next episode, which I'll tell you more about later in the show. As per usual, team, there's marketing GOLD dripping from the ceiling over here at Small Business Big Marketing's HQ. So let's get stuck right in. Before we go and meet Pippa Hallas of Bache fame, I have two quick favours to ask of you. Is that okay? Just a couple of really simple ones. Number one, if you haven't already, I would love you to subscribe to this podcast. Why? Because you'll be the first to know when a new episode drops, which makes you kind of the cool kid on the block. And it really helps me with my ratings. Producer Dave was explaining to me the other day the algorithm for how podcasts rank, and having lots and lots of subscribers is a good thing. So I'm going with what Dave says. And all you have to do is hit the subscribe button in whatever podcast app you are using. Favour number two, once you've done it, call the Small Business Big Marketing hotline 0480 015 150 and leave me a message saying something like, hey, Timbo, it's blah, blah here from Blah, Blah Incorporated, and I just subscribed to your podcast because I freaking love it. That would be really good. And then I just play it on air. And if I get enough, we'll just make a whole episode of people saying, I freaking love it. Producer Dave's looking at me going, you're joking, aren't you? You are joking. That is the most boring bit of, podcasting ever. Anyway, they're the two favours I ask. If you were to do one of them, it'd be subscribe. Thank you. Okay. Let's meet Pippa Hallas, the third-generation owner of the iconic skincare brand Bache, which sells 320 SKUs, that's stock-keeping units for those not in the know, across 120 branded franchise clinics nationally. Plus, they have 34 skincare clinics inside David Jones department stores. For those overseas, that's a very big department store throughout Australia. Now, Pippa employs over 120 staff. Her franchise network employs thousands of skincare therapists nationally, plus hundreds more go through the Bache College every year, which we will talk about in this interview. Now, Pippa generously shares what it's like to head up a third-generation family business, a conversation we haven't had on this podcast that much, i.e. family business, management. We talk about what she uncovered when she appeared on the TV hit reality show Undercover Boss. She shares her worst razor blade moment, her words, not mine, and her greatest champagne moment, her words again, plus her views around making bold moves and unexpected decisions. She has a wonderful mindset, Pippa, when it comes to running a business. Now, Pippa's great aunt, Madame Bache, founded the business in Paris way back in 1936. So I started off by asking Pippa what influence Madame Bache has had on the way she currently runs the Bache empire.
It's a really good question, and it's a question I've been thinking a lot about, particularly in 2020 because of the obvious reasons. She's someone who started a business in the most disruptive time in history. So obviously World War II, she lost a lot of her friends and networks, and she actually was Czechoslovakian and studied chemistry at university there and moved to Paris after she graduated. So she was someone who didn't have the benefits of technology that we do, but she heavily believed in using her networks and creating her networks to build a business and a brand. You know, while she was a very tenacious person, she didn't suffer fools easily. She was very kind but tough, and she was, I guess, a female that broke a lot of glass ceilings in, way back when.
As the third generation now CEO of the Bache business empire, let's call it an empire, it sounds much more impressive. Were you ever sat down and had because your dad took over from her, did anyone ever sit you down and sort of say, now this is how it is, this is where we came from and this is how it's going to be?
No, and I was raised in a family that never sat me down and said, this is what you've got to do, this is how you're going to do it. I was just brought up with it around me, and it was just part of my family, part of the dinner conversations, part of, what I did on school holidays, packing a lot of boxes and, all the things family business people do. So never ever was forced. I was always probably taught by osmosis. I don't think it was by design. I think it just happened naturally.
You're living it.
Just living it.
So your dad took over from great aunt Madame Bache. I love saying that. It conjures up such a visual in my mind.
Yeah. She was a scientist. So imagine a white lab coat and this amazing long hair in a bun all the time. She wasn't the glamorous, she was beautiful, but she was a scientist. So
yeah. Tough. She was on a mission.
She was on a mission.
Did you ever get to understand why she started the business? Did she have a skin problem? Was she into fashion? What was that about?
She was passionate about creating formulas with the highest quality ingredients. She'd get really inspired by things like, for example, walking through the markets and watching, the poorer market peasants, she used to call them, putting tomatoes on their skin, and she'd go back to the lab to try and unpack what that was. And so for those listening who know skincare really well, that then turned into fruit acids and extracts. So she was an inventor.
Love it. So what I learned there is it's okay. Like I should go home and do maybe a Heinz tomato ketchup facial, or
not quite that easy.
No. Okay.
Lots of compounds and scientific things that got her to an end result of treating healthy skin. Yes.
So Bache comes to Australia in the 1950s. Your father is running the business. Did he come over from France, or was he?
No, he was born here. He's a boomer. He's a post-war baby boomer. And my father is completely the opposite. So he's very creative and he's the entrepreneur. So he essentially became a brand manager and builder before brand management was even a term.
Yeah, right.
And he's one of these people, he's a lifelong learner, but he's not a university person by any means. So he's...
Yeah, not an academic.
That's it. Sorry, that's the word I was looking for. Not an academic. So I'd have I went to uni and, I think Dad and I have lots of debates still over, which is the better way to start a business and learn in life. Yeah.
How old's Dad now?
Mid-70s.
Oh, that's beautiful. So
not in the business at all.
Okay, so because Bache, this is we have a global audience here, but certainly in Australia, Bache is a great brand name in the skincare category. Do we put it down to what's Dad's name?
John.
Do we put it down to John? Is he the
or Nodge? My kids call him Nodge, which is John backwards.
I love it.
So that just gives you an idea of what sort of person he is.
Is he the brains behind getting the brand to a point in time where it was a almost iconic Australian brand.
100%. And I think there was some deliberate choices he made certainly in the 80s and early 90s that put the brand on the map. And it was probably, he's very intuitive and he backs himself and, worked extremely hard back then. But, many Australians who would be listening to this who, were watching mainstream media back then would remember the 18-foot skiffs and the Bache brand name on the skiff. And that
skiff being a yacht.
A yacht. And the brilliance behind that was the skiffs were broadcast during the cricket. So it was a really, combine someone's passion of sailing with a great billboard on Sydney Harbour with free broadcast media, and that, was an amazing boost for the brand.
But how did that work? I mean, sailing and cricket, I'm going to get myself into trouble here. Just say it, Tim. Say it, Tim. Don't be scared. You know what I'm going to say? Male-dominated sports.
Yes.
Why would a female brand plaster itself over them?
Yes. Well, we did other things at the same time, such as, back in the day there was only Iron Men events. So, my father was very passionate. I mean, growing up, under the watch of someone like Ella, he always had really strong female role models and, he invented the Iron Women. So Ella Bache.
Really?
Yeah.
Your dad, Nodge, invented Iron Women.
Yeah. So Nodge.
Stop it.
Nodge worked with the Iron Men or Surf Lifesaving at the time and basically said, hey, this isn't right. There should be women doing this. So, so it was a very Australian, lifestyle brand. And I think that that played through the heritage of the brand. It plays through, the brand today and how the brand became built by doing things that probably weren't the norm in the category, surprising people and being a bit irreverent, I guess.
Not a word I would...
to stand out.
It doesn't seem like an irreverent brand. In fact, earlier I said, Ella Bache is an iconic Australian brand. I actually didn't realise it was Australian until I was introduced to you, and I was quite surprised. Is it good that it just seems very international to me, Ella Bache? Do you want people to know that it is an Australian brand, or would you prefer them to think it actually French?
Yeah, I know. It's a really interesting question. I think every advertising agency I've worked with in, my time as CEO has asked that question, and I reflect on it and think, I don't think it matters. I think we've got this beautiful European heritage with an Australian lifestyle moment now, and I think we pull on both. We've got fabulous ranges that are developed and, built out of Australian human needs, such as, for example, sunscreen that doesn't sting your eyes when you go surfing, or beautiful Byron Bay facial oil. So I don't think it really matters. France has, I think it would matter if it was made in different country that didn't have the cachet and premium quality ingredients that Australia is renowned for, and same with Paris.
Pippa, Nodge decides enough's enough, whenever that may be. You are working in advertising agency land. You and I have very similar backgrounds, having grown up in big advertising agencies. Was it always a plan for you at some point to take the business over and be the third generation stalwart? Is that what you call yourself? It's a terrible phrase, stalwart, isn't it? It's like...
It is. I don't think anyone's ever called me that.
I'll take that as an honour then.
Yeah.
How did you come about to be running the business?
Yeah, so look, Nodge burnt out or retired when he was about 50, and he, decided to go painting and surfing in Byron. Smart move. So we had a non-family member CEO for many, many years, and I was working obviously in advertising and absolutely loved it and super grateful for my time there. But I turned 30 and, back in the days, that was pretty old for someone working in advertising.
It was.
And, in all seriousness, there just wasn't many female role models in agency land that I really aspired to at that time. And I thought to myself, I've got to either go back overseas or jump ship and try working in the family business. And, my passion and my heart was always there because it's, blood is thicker than water. And it was a great brand. It wasn't, something I wasn't passionate about, like nails or tyres or, something like that. So
Was Nodge giving you a nudge? Was there any pressure?
no, there wasn't actually. If I reminisce, because I've, got my own kids, and I think Nodge did something really, really clever or just fluked it. I'm not sure. I have to ask him this. But he just educated us, and I always knew what was going on in the business, but it was never, ever with any expectation or force.
I think there was a plan there. Knowing Nodge as I do, he doesn't do anything by chance. He's like,
You're probably
I'll
right.
get her by hook or by crook, and he got you.
That's it. And also one thing I've learned from Nodge is delegation.
He's good at delegating,
very good
is he?
at it.
You do this, you do that. I do nothing.
Yeah.
I surf and paint and live in Byron Bay. I mean, Nodge is a smart gentleman, and I like him. I'm going to knock on his door when I'm next down there. What do you find yourself focusing on as CEO?
Good question. So, look, it took me a long time to work out what a CEO actually does. And, I remember when I first stepped up into that role and kind of sat there with a blank piece of paper going, what am I supposed to be doing? So, look, I think it's different for every business, but for our business, the drivers of the business are certainly around the brand and innovation, product innovation. We're very much an education business. We run an undergraduate school. So education, and also education to the consumer so they can learn more things about their skin is important. And also, business models in general. So that's how I spend my time, as well as, managing a lot of people, whether it's our franchisees or staff or therapists.
It's such an all-encompassing position, isn't it? What do you find particularly hard? Now we'll see how transparent you are, because some of your staff are probably going to listen to this.
Yeah.
So,
you know what?
Be honest.
No, I probably find the most rewarding thing and the most challenging thing is managing and working with people, because we all bring our own life to, work. And the more I learn, particularly going through a hard year, which 2020's been for a lot of people, the more I realise that, mindset is such an important thing. And, mindset, I don't know whether it's nurture or nature, but mindset is such an important thing. And you can influence people, but you can't control people. And I think it's just giving, my role is to give people the best opportunity they can to succeed and try and play to their strengths.
How do you do that? How do you give people the best opportunity to succeed? Is that giving them enough rope to hang themselves? Is it giving them great advice or education? What does that look like?
I think, and again, you learn this through experience, is you set people up with a really clear framework of, what their objectives are, and then you give them the freedom, and you act as their coach, and you're there to pass on as much information. I feel, now I'm a bit older, to re-gift that information to people that I've had the fortune to acquire in my life. But, they've got to lean in and do it all themselves. Yeah.
I loved chatting to you earlier in the week, in the lead up to this interview. You talked about razor blade moments and champagne moments.
Yes.
So good things that happen in the business and bad things. Can you give us an example of a razor blade moment?
Yes, I can. And it's I've had so many, and so many even in, you got razor blade and champagne all in the space of an hour, right? Running a business, that's just what happens. So, for me, I think I'll never, ever forget the moment on the 26th of March this year, when Scott Morrison announced on the television that all skincare salons or beauty had to close down across Australia. So I think the blood ran out of my face. It was 11 p.m. at night. And, you feel an enormous, I still get goosebumps, enormous amount of responsibility for, we've got thousands of people that's livelihoods rely on, essentially, I felt like me at that time. So you kind of go, wow, your leadership's, you have to step up and try and make the best choices you can in a particularly challenging situation, because you don't know what's going to happen. No one knew.
Well, you can't prepare yourself because you didn't see it coming. But how do you steel yourself so that you can step up and be the person who is going to be looked to for confidence, security, a reassurance? How do you do that?
There's two things that have really helped me. One is continually learning, particularly, in that example I gave you. I've been, I quite often read Harvard Business Review publications and different case studies in there. And I had been reading about what a department store in China had done in Wuhan to try and see if there was some, levers we could pull from what they had done. And that's exactly what we did. So I could see this coming 10 days before it happened. And I could see from just purely educating myself that all high-touch, face-to-face businesses were going to be shut down. So the only channel we had as an option to drive revenue, to connect with customers and to keep the business going essentially was digital and tech. So we had to pivot, overused word, but it's a great word, and we had to do it quickly. So that's exactly what we did. And so as the franchisees or stores closed their doors, we opened virtual stores. I mean, we didn't have the time to perfect it or test it, but at least it gave everyone a digital platform to try and earn some money.
What do you mean by that? Is it like, so you got an e-commerce store on your site. You don't mean that. You've introduced mobile therapists to go to people's homes. Is that what you mean by a virtual store or virtual offering?
No. So, I mean, we've got 150 franchisees across Australia, all small business owners. And, they're everywhere from Darwin to Alice Springs to Westfield shopping centres. So what I fundamentally believed was the important thing for them was to learn through this time, was to connect to their customers and possibly have every chance of earning some revenue. So we created, I guess, a mini e-com store for each of them and also an ability to do a virtual skin consultation. You could hook into me either through social channels. That's how you'd find out about the offer. You'd click on Facebook or Instagram and then you'd get taken through to, Ella Bache Bondi's virtual salon. And then you would see Ella Bache Bondi therapists that you had been used to seeing in their store. So that relationship and that connection, I believed, was really important to retain that business and so everyone could open again. And also they could sell online.
Yes. Pippa, you appeared on Undercover CEO, the reality TV series where they follow the CEO of a big business. They disguise you and you go into all aspects of the business. What did you learn from that experience?
I learned something really nice. I learned that there was an enormous amount of passion in the brand. And yeah, look, processes could have been tweaked in different ways, shapes or form, but that the heart was there and the passion was there, and I think that was a really, really fantastic reminder for me when I finished that.
Any interesting surprises?
Talking about a family business. So the crew at the time were really, really wanting me to go into our manufacturing facility. We produce and manufacture a lot of products in Sydney here, and I was like, you don't understand. These people have known me since I was 5 years old. It's going to waste your day. It's going to waste your time. But if you really want me to do it, I'll do it. And they're like, yeah, I really want this to be part of the story. So I was like, okay. I had my brown hair, my coat on, and I walked in and one of the ladies, who's divine, says to me, Pippa, what have you done to your hair? And
Oh, that's funny.
I know. Busted.
Busted.
So look, yeah, it's a human business is about relationships, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, absolutely. I mean, of the hundreds and hundreds of business owners that I speak to, when you ask them, what's the greatest threat and the greatest opportunity in their business, they say people. And, managing those people is all about great relationships. So clearly you're onto that. You operate in an industry. How are you define your industry? It's not the cosmetic industry, is it? What's your... Or is it?
Oh, you could call it that. We call it skincare.
Skincare, okay.
Yeah.
Incredibly competitive. Back in the day, probably when you took over, there were big brands like Clinique and, all those other ones that I don't really know because I'm a bloke and what would I know. But I sense it's just become increasingly more competitive as the years go on. How do you remain relevant and how do you remain that brand of choice when the choice has just become so extensive?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I think for all of us who own businesses, that I feel, again, grateful I've got a marketing background because I understand this. It's ingrained in me. You've got to have a point of difference and you've got to be able to differentiate yourself from your customers and really have a value proposition that customers love and are relevant to today. So, I think running a business, there's probably three things. There's your vision, your strategy, and then your execution. And so your vision has to be so relevant and people fall in love with you. So I think that's our challenge. And, we've got two very different customer bases, and I try and get to know the customers, as well as I possibly can to make good decisions. But, they're the over 40 customers and they're the under 40 and very different behaviour from both customer segments.
How do you get to know them?
I try and get out there as much as I can. I try and stand in store and
meet the people, kiss the babies.
all that kind of stuff. I try and, we work really closely with our franchisees and, whether it's on new products or gaps or what customers are saying, and try and do quant and qual surveys once a year.
What would you say is Bache's point of difference? Because, every business owner knows that they must have a point of difference, but we live in a world of parity where there are so many, brands in every category.
Yes. Finding
a point of difference, one could argue is hard. I actually think it's not as hard as we think, but what is yours?
I think ours is, definitely because we're a service-based business as well, is a strong point of difference. I think if it were just a product business, it would be, really, really hard. It goes back to the founder's beliefs and principles, which is around no two skins are alike. And, this belief that, individuals should feel confident in their own skin. So I think if we did a lot of work when Kim Kardashian and social media and all that stuff exploded, because all of a sudden, particularly in Australia, the explosion of what I call the fast food of beauty happened. And it was the normalisation of, Botox and fillers and all those things that, a lot of particularly under 35s, they wanted to look like someone else. They didn't want to look like a better version of, they didn't want to look like them. And that really personally, kind of upset me. And I'm not putting any of these Botox or fillers down, but what concerned me was people wanting to look like everyone else. So, I think that runs really deeply in our organisation and how we talk to customers and et cetera, et cetera. It's making sure that people have healthy skin, but they have the healthiest version of them.
It's said, and you hear it occasionally, that the skincare industry sells hope. What's your view on that?
I think it does, but I think again, goes back to Ella. She was a scientist. She wasn't someone who just was selling a dream and hope. We wouldn't sell or formulate products that didn't work, and we don't promise miracles. So it depends on what you're looking for. But, aspiration does drive a lot of industries. And I think as long as the product works and you say what you do, I think you can have fun with the brand and the aspirational side of things.
I think one of the things that you do very well, and you said it earlier, is that you educate. You are well beyond selling hope, and you do educate both your franchisees, but more importantly your customers, on what great skincare regime is and how to go about it. How's that come about, and what does it look like? On the website there's lots of information, other content that you share. It plays into what I call helpful marketing, which is that idea of helping your prospects make a more informed purchase decision.
Yeah, and I think it's a category, like a lot of categories, possibly financial products, etc., where people make a lot of mistakes and it's trial and error, and there's not a lot of information out there that you can learn more about your skin. So, education has always been at the fundamental premise of our brand, and I think, part of our point of difference is that we only have therapists working in our business who have learnt about the skin. We don't have salespeople. So it comes back to, first and foremost, it's a diagnosis, and then it's a solution. Your skin is different to mine, different to everyone else's, and it's about diagnosing what your skin needs and then creating a product solution that's going to work for you, and you will get the results.
Pricing in your category looks
Yes.
incredibly interesting because you can, let's talk moisturiser. You can go to a chemist, you can buy a moisturiser for $3, $4, $5. You can go to some fancy clinic, boutique, and buy a moisturiser for $300, $400. How does pricing work in your industry? Does a higher price mean a better product?
Look, probably not always, like all industries, but I do think it goes back to highest quality ingredients in a product. It's like food. You want it to be the best ingredients and you don't want to use horrible, cheap ingredients. It's just not good for your skin. It's not good for your health, etc. But then probably more than me, it's about positioning in the minds of your customers. And I remember learning about the 4 Ps. It's probably totally different in
Yeah, the old 4
the old
Ps.
4 Ps are. It's probably I don't know what they teach in undergraduate marketing degrees now, but positioning is about price. It's about product. It's about all those things that we learned.
Product, price, place, promotion, and I would argue there's a 5th P, which is people.
Nice. I love that.
Yes,
Awesome.
Yes, I never quite understood why that one was left out when I was doing marketing at uni. It was
Exactly.
like,
Where's the people?
isn't that the first P?
Yeah, that's right. Don't you need a customer?
Yeah. What marketing works best for you? So you've actually got 2 streams. You're trying to attract franchisees, of which you have 150 nationally. I'm interested to know what you do to attract them. But more importantly, as a consumer product brand, what marketing works best? I don't think you're on TV or radio or any of those. Do you do outdoor? Do you do magazines? What really works for you to create awareness and sales?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. And look, the whole marketing landscape has changed so much.
Oh, yeah.
It is just so different.
Tell me what you mean. I know what you mean by that, but can you spell it out to listeners and what does that mean to you?
Yeah, of course. So, gosh, when I worked in advertising,
Back in the day,
we would have the traditional, media options, and that would be TV, radio, print, magazines, etc., outdoor. But still, we were very much taught to, have a good single-minded proposition behind all your communications, and it had to come off a very clear consumer insight. So I don't think the strategic side of things has changed.
No, that hasn't changed.
I think you absolutely need to know your customers, what problems you're trying to solve for them, and make sure they're really authentic problems. The media landscape has changed, and I think, probably five years or more, we just flipped our marketing model. And yes, we do in-store, bricks and mortar and high touch is so important to our business. But, in terms of our marketing model, we just went, you know what? We just need to create a digitally led marketing model. So we got out of print TV, et cetera, and we just doubled down on digital. And I think you absolutely still need a compelling, creative ad that engage people at, I always look at the funnel. I think that's still relevant today. At the top of the funnel where you're driving awareness and getting, eyeballs or clicks. And then as you go down the funnel, it becomes more about sales conversions and ultimately product purchase. So, I love digital marketing because it gives you, there's that old question, 50% of your marketing works. The challenge is to know
which 50%.
Which 50%. And I think digital marketing allows you to get closer to that answer.
A product like yours, a brand like yours, sort of you expect to see it, and maybe you are, a full page ad in the first few pages of, say, Vogue, right? Which I'm guessing these days, I have no idea, but I'm guessing it costs 10 grand, 20 grand, I don't know, something, a lot of dough. You're shaking your head going, we're not there. Is that right?
Well, it's really interesting. Let me ask you this. How many Vogue magazines do you think they print every month now?
In Australia? I'm going to say, I have no idea, but I'm going to say 40,000.
I know, right? 8,000 copies.
Oh, stop it.
Yeah, I know. So if you're talking about, making the best choices to reach your audience, a lot of those traditional media, and I love Vogue. I love the aspiration of, a lot of these magazines, but it just doesn't do the job that you need it to do anymore. So we use it.
What about, just on that, so I'm thinking, okay, but you have a strategic partnership with David Jones Department Stores. Whilst there's only 8,000 people who are buying Vogue magazine in Australia, the quality of those people, like the main buyer at David Jones, wouldn't it be good? I'm not putting forward a case, by the way, to have a full page in Vogue, but it's kind of where you expect a brand like yours to be. Don't you want them to see the Ella Bache full page ad in Vogue, and then your job is done?
Is it that easy these days?
No, I'm not. I'm sort of being facetious, and I'm not putting forward an argument because I know the opportunity cost. Let's say it is $10,000 for a full page ad. The opportunity cost of that in today's marketing landscape is huge. I mean, how many Facebook ads does that buy? How many, how much content could you create with $10,000 these days?
I think that's it. You're absolutely right. It's the choice now, and I think if you run a premium brand like Ella Bache, you have to do the aspirational piece, and I strongly believe in that. We lean on PR very heavily, so you probably hopefully you'll open a Vogue magazine. You'll see product placement and editorial, and then and we probably use that. We'll use that a lot more than we do an old ad that looks like print media in our days. But and then we use social, and I think one of the things that I had to do, that I did a couple of years ago, someone encouraged me with this idea that the notion of influence has completely changed. So, people are buying on that they're influenced by humans and they connect with humans as more so than big brands these days. So that's when I went out and although I love being a CEO in the background, part of my role to drive the business needs to be to tell the story. And I think it's, as a brand and a business owner, you need to tell your unique story because no one can copy that.
No. There's a great saying around brand, Pippa, which is people can copy what we do but not who we are. And I think more business owners
that's a great one.
Yeah, well, just more business owners need to focus on that because, everything we do is very easily replicated, but the way we go about doing it, the personality we inject into it, the tone at which we do it sets us apart. And I think there's a lot of comfort
and the
to be taken in that.
The stories we have in the brands.
No one's got a great
Especially
Aunt
Australian.
Madame Bache, like you're the only one with that.
Exactly.
No one's got a nodge.
No one's got a nodge, exactly. So Nodge probably would have done marketing or did marketing very differently to how I did it because of the notion of influence has changed and humans need to step out from behind the brands and connect with their customers on social channels, on blogs, on editorial, all these things that people now are marketed to by their phones, as we know.
Yeah, and even I have I get listeners email me saying can we have more product marketers and CEOs on the show because service marketing it's a little bit easier. The business owner steps out and says it's me. But the idea of stepping out from behind a product brand is different. Now, you don't do that in the public forum. You don't go, hey, I'm Pippa Hallas and I'm, the boss of Ella Bache. But you do get out there and meet the people and talk to your customers and so important, otherwise you lose touch.
It's so important. I mean, one of the things I have done is I've written a book and I've also turned that book into a blog series. So
love it.
And that's part of my marketing job as a CEO. So for me, it was around, the brand represents bold women and men. And so for me, I wanted to interview lots and lots of bold women out there doing some really awesome stuff. So, that's what I spend probably an hour or 2 hours a week doing that.
Is that the premise of your book, interviewing bold women?
So my book was called Bold Moves. And the reason it was called Bold Moves was not because I think I make bold moves, but because, Ella was bold. I told the Ella story, the human story behind the brand. And then I interviewed a lot of females who I've met, certainly in my role that I think are amazing and bold and, such as Lorna Jane and Lane Beachley and all these fabulous women who share their knowledge.
Biggest takeaway from going through that process, both personally and maybe just to help you run the business?
I think going into that process, I kind of thought, no one's going to want to give their time or, impart their knowledge onto me. And, I hope I'm not just being annoying. But when I reached out to these women, they were just their generosity of spirit was awesome. And I think, for all business owners, you realise you're not alone in all these things you experience, such as being very self-conscious and self-doubt and imposter syndrome and, people not believing in your vision and your ideas, and you start to, question yourself, and all these things are really, really normal. And I think I walked away feeling very grateful that people out there are willing to give so much, and also that you're not alone.
Totally agree. Great advice too, because too many business owners think they are alone, and too many business owners are scared to reach out and kind of show vulnerability and all that nonsense, and they should. We're all human at the end of the day. I was actually petrified interviewing the CEO of Bache, but hey, you turned out to be, half decent.
Stop it.
Pippa, awesome. Look, genuinely was. I was so excited when our mutual friend Anthony Bell said he knew you and could get me an intro, because it is a brand that, I don't spend my waking hours thinking about Bache, but I do get excited when I think about brands that have such high awareness and such cachet, and Bache does have cachet. Hey, there you go. I'm a poet. I didn't know it. So thank you for joining us.
Awesome. Thank you so
podcast.
much.
Awesome.
Thanks so much, Tim. Bye-bye.
There you go, team. Bache owner Pippa Hallas. I reckon she would be a super duper boss. Here's my top 3 attention grabbers from that chat with Pippa. Attention grabber number 1. I was reminded again just how important mindset is when building a business of any size, and in particular, your marketing mindset. Now, you're listening to this podcast, so I'm guessing you either want to love marketing or you do love marketing. Embrace marketing, have a mindset of positivity around it, of opportunity around it, and it will do you good. Attention grabber number 2. I love Pippa's willingness and keenness to step out from behind the brand, which gives her clear insights into her precious customers. We've spoken about this a lot on the show. If you're the boss, if you're the founder, I hope you're getting out, meeting your customers, keeping your finger on the pulse like Pippa is. Attention grabber number 3. I love the fact that Pippa's continually learning. Again, most senior person in the business, some might think, she knows it all. She doesn't need to keep learning. She doesn't know it all, and she does keep learning, and I find that really inspiring. That's what caught my attention. I would love to know what grabbed yours. Call the Small Business Big Marketing Hotline, 0480 015 150. Put it in your phone under Timbo and let me know.
Come on down. It's Timbo's Monster Prize Draw.
Yes, indeedly doodly. It's time to reward another motivated listener who listens to this podcast, but more importantly, implements ideas that they've picked up from the show. And today's winner is rural estate agent Michael Gleeson of 1.8 Real Estate in Tranmere, South Australia. And Michael says, Timbo, your podcast has become an important part of my weekly ritual. I am a dream maker, love that, aka real estate agent. That's cool. Who is in an extremely tough market with, how's this, 30 to 40 new agents each week getting licensed and trying to break into my farm area. That just seems a lot. Like over the course of a month, let's take the 30 per week. That's over 120 new agents in your area. It just seems bizarre. Anyway, I'll believe you, Michael. He goes on to say, I especially took inspiration from Mark Livings. He's the owner of the non-alcoholic spirit Liars, who not only took a product into a flooded marketplace, but created a whole new market and customer base. Yeah, that was an awesome interview. He's one of the great marketers, is Mark Livings. Michael goes on to say, my business is built on performance with a no sale, no fee promise. I feel that putting skin in the game with real estate has made my business more honest, and we work far harder than our competitors. Keep up the good work, Timbo. Regards, Michael Gleeson, 1.8 Real Estate. I wonder why it's called 1.8 Real Estate. We will never know. Michael, thank you for listening, and thank you for emailing me. As a result, you have won a full range of Liars non-alcoholic spirits. It's valued over $500. Vouchers to use with Sendle and Tradies Workwear. Promotion on this show and a backlink in the show notes. Everyone else, I would love to hear how your marketing's going. If you've picked up an idea from this show, implemented in your business, email me and let me know what impact it's had. Keep it short, like Michael did, and you might win. Email me tim@timreid.com.au or call me on 0480 015 150.
Hey Timbo, this is Horace Quadrito from Bayside Limousines, Cars and Buses. Mate, I stumbled upon your fantastic podcast probably about 6 or 7 months ago, enjoying it thoroughly. So doing a lot of the back episodes just to get up to speed. But being in the limousine business, like your latest podcast that you've got with Stage Kings, we're basically in the events business and, tourism business and corporate, driving around speakers for a lot of the speaking houses around the country. But we were wiped out as of the 21st of March, like a lot of my colleagues in the limousine game. Mate, I decided that it was time to do something else or try to do something else. So I relaunched a business that I had about 30 years ago, mate. Business called Hot Dogs of the World. So we went out, sourced a food trailer, decked it out with all the original logos and just modernized them with the help of my marketing kids with their, graphics and all that sort of stuff. So we've now been running for about 3 months, and it's the most exhilarating idea that I came up with. I mean, I'm in my 60s nearly, and just loving doing the business again. Who knows where we'll go from here? But again, love listening to your podcast. Keep up the great work, and thanks very much for listening to me. Have a great time. Take care. Bye.
Horace, that, my friend, is incredibly inspiring. You're in your early 60s. I'm sorry to hear that your limo business has taken a hit, but yeah, many businesses have taken a hit over COVID. The fact that you have gone and opened up an old business idea that you used to do, Hot Dogs of the World. I love it already. The fact that you think it is exhilarating says to me that you are onto something. I don't think you're going to work another day in your life, brother, given that you've found a business that is exhilarating. So, mate, I wish you all the luck. Thank you for listening to this podcast. I hope it's adding value to your business life. And, mate, all the best with Hot Dogs of the World. Hey, got a little bonus for you in the next episode. I've gone out to the members of the Small Business Big Marketing Tribe on Facebook. You remember, right? Aren't you? If you're not, join. And asked one simple question. How can we, as consumers, not business owners, help small businesses get more customers? And I got to say, the 30 plus ideas that I will share with you in next week's episode are absolutely awesome. If you find yourself loving marketing more and more, then grab a copy of my book, The Boomerang Effect, over at smallbusinessbigmarketing.com, which explains why and how you need to be creating more helpful marketing in your business. If you've got something to tell me, leave a message over on the Small Business Big Marketing hotline. I promise I won't answer. It's not my personal phone number. It's a hotline. So leave a message on 0480 015 150. This podcast is presented by me, Timbo Reid, and caressed and loved by the Araldite team. Until next time, thank you so much for tuning in. May your marketing be the best marketing. Bye for now.